A note to listeners, the following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
She was going around that hotel. She was going through a lot, I do remember. And then it was like she was gone, and I don't know what happened to her.
That's so funny. I found her in Oregon, but I can't get a hold of her. She was another one like Steve that he played the tape for.
It took me years. I used to run if I saw a silver van.
Oh, I could just imagine.
Yeah, it was bad because he didn't like me, and I knew it, and he let me know he didn't like me. That's so strange that I never connected Larry with him.
Yeah,
but you're absolutely right. I'm picturing Hannibal Lecter right now, and there's so much of the same demeanor.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. Hi, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, even if it's one word.
And please subscribe to our website, www.partnersintruecrime. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to check out our weekly promos. We're also now on YouTube at Partners in True Crime. If you subscribe to our website, you'll be getting weekly emails from us and all kinds of promotions and things that we don't advertise on the podcast.
Laura is still up at San Quentin, talking to the remaining death row inmates who are still waiting to be transferred to other prisons, as San Quentin is now being called a rehabilitation center.
This week, we're going to be sharing a touching yet tragic interview that Laura did last year with one of Bittaker and Norris's survivors.
Tina Forconi was a teenager living in Burbank who was part of a group of teens that hung out near the Scott Hotel where Bittaker had a room.
Bittaker would entice the teenagers looking to party by buying them alcohol and giving them drugs. We've spoken to a few people already on the podcast who hung out near Bittaker's place.
Tina always had her boyfriend Steve by her side whenever she was near Bittaker, and that annoyed the serial killer.
Laura found Tina through Bittaker's own case files. At first, like the other survivors, Tina was hesitant to speak, but after they met face to face, they soon became allies to find missing victims.
The interview you're about to hear was recorded just prior to Tina's passing, June of 2023. Her words live on.
Crazy case. And I talked to Michael, I think it was last weekend. Yeah, I think it was last Saturday. Do you remember Michael? Because he talked about Steve a lot.
Oh, yeah, the ones who were the most closest was me, Steve, Mike McEwen, his brother Jack McEwen, Dina, and Andy. We were like all joined at the hip every day.
That's so funny.
It was rare for a day to go by that all of us didn't hang together.
Wow. Yeah, I tracked down Andy, too. He's still in Los Angeles.
Is he? Yeah.
I haven't talked to him.
The last contact I had with him was, oh gosh, I don't even remember really. It was after I think he had a kid. We just happened to run into each other on the streets. It was weird.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Do you remember that girl, Christina Drayle, who lived next door?
I remember Christina Drayle. I remember at that time, too, she was pregnant and her parents kicked her out of her house, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And
she was hanging around the hotel. Like I said, the group I just told you about was usually who I was with going around over there. Me and Steve, I never left Steve's side, you know.
Yeah.
But as far as like Tracy, it was once like that beach time. And so certain people like Chris, she was going around that hotel. She was going through a lot, I do remember. And then it was like she was gone, and I don't know what happened to her.
That's so funny. I found her in Oregon, but I can't get a hold of her. She was another one like Steve that he played the tape for.
Okay.
And then, did you recognize any of the other girls?
Yeah, I know Trish Wolf. Yeah, I knew her family. Once I got with Steve, I kind of just started not hanging around some of the girls, you know what I mean, if that makes sense. You know, you get it with the boyfriend. But I know Trish Wolf, like I said, Christina Drayle. You have to forgive my memory, too, because, like, when I seen some of the names, it was like, oh, my God. Because through the years, I've wanted to look up some of these people on Facebook, but my mind has literally blocked out some names, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird. Trish Wolf, the Tina Hastings, that does not sound familiar to me. Who else did you mention?
There's a Valerie Miro.
I knew a Valerie. Can't say that's the last name, but it must be. But I did know a Valerie.
There was Sharon Hunter and a Lynette Hunter are mentioned.
I don't recall those two.
Who's the other one? Carrie Montgomery was mentioned.
not offhand.
Um,
Doesn't.
yeah, in the police files, it's so hard to track everybody down because it was only you and Valerie were the only ones listed with birth dates. So all I have for the other ones are just names to try to find somebody. Steve is in it, Andy's in it, Mike is in it. His brother was in it. A few other guys too are mentioned. And then even some of the names, they just put down nicknames for the people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the nicknames we called them.
Yeah.
I mean, there was really a group of, I can say it, maybe almost 15 of us teenagers. All of us really kind of hung out in the park, you know what I mean? We went to school together, that kind of thing. Some of us hung out like on a daily basis. We're more closer to each other than others.
Did you guys all go to like the same high school?
Me and Dina, Steve, and if I remember correct, Michael McEwen and Jack McEwen, they had all dropped out. I know Steve wasn't going to high school. He dropped out. But Steve's mom kicked him out at 16, just before all this happened, and my mom took him in, so he was living with us at the time this happened.
Wow.
And Jack, so I lost train of thought, it's so hard. But Jack McEwen, he was close to, and I know he's passed away from what I heard.
Yeah, he passed away.
I mean, I don't remember if you heard of a name Marie McEwen. I don't think Marie was around the Larry Bittaker thing. Because there was, like I said, a group of us, could be 15 to 20 of us just in Burbank that all knew each other, and, you know, we'd party in the park, and, you know, in different groups, I guess, would go party over there at the hotel. Because I would see it. Like I said, Christina, Tracy, like we went to the beach that time.
What high school did you and Dina go to? Was it Burbank or was it?
In junior high, we went to John Burroughs Junior High.
John Burroughs, okay.
In Burbank.
Still trying to figure out because there's one mention where Bittaker drives two of the girls, and I want to say it was the girl Sharon Hunter. He drove them to, it's right next to Sunland with a T.
With a T, Tahunga.
Yes, that's where it was, yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Because Michael was the one who told me that story about Steve. Of like one day, Bittaker said to him, he goes, "Do you want to ride home?" Or something. He asked him for a ride home, and he said it scared the shit out of Steve because he drove him up. He said San Dimas, but I think it was San Gabriel, and he just didn't say a word to him. Got out of the car, just pointed a gun at him, and then just got right back in and drove him home.
Yeah, because Steve's mom at that time lived up in Sunland, and Sunland, Tahunga. And so at that time, Steve would go back and forth from, staying at my house and sometimes going to his mom's. It wasn't San Gabriel Mountain. It was San Andreas Mountain? No, Angeles Crest, up in that area. If you are going up into Sunland, Tahunga area, you can enter, I believe it's just what I told you. I'm sorry, it's like I'm shaking inside, memories, but that's the mountains he took him up into. That I was told by Steve, because it was close to Steve's mom's house. He was able to take him. He took him up there and scared the shit out of him.
Wow.
Yeah. It ruined Steve.
Yeah, I bet.
It absolutely ruined his life. It ruined my marriage.
Do you think that's what happened? Is like he was just so scarred from like Bittaker? It just.
Oh yeah. He'd come home after testifying. You got to remember, he was like 16, maybe 17 by the time the trial started. I don't remember. He was a kid. We were kids. And he used to come home, and I'd just hold him for hours while he would cry.
Oh, my God.
Reliving. I mean, I believe in court they had to play part of that tape again because they had to verify that's the tape Steve heard.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was pretty horrific what we went through. I mean, it took me years. I used to run if I saw a silver van.
Oh, I could just imagine.
Yeah, it was bad because he didn't like me, and I knew it, and he let me know he didn't like me.
Really? He like really made it known to you?
Yes, and in his, I don't even know how to. You've been in a room with him.
Yeah.
He has I don't even know how to put it. He has a way to get in your head.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to say something. You could read what he's telling you in his eyes.
Yeah. I've actually pushed some buttons and seen like that anger come out at him. Yeah.
He got angry at me. I'm Italian, so I do have a mouth on me. As a kid back then, I was a smart kid, but I did speak my what I spoke my mind. And I do remember pissing him off, several times. And I remember he got so mad one time, and he said, "You're grounded, and you can't come back here for a week," or whatever, 2 weeks, whatever it was.
That is so
but
weird.
he got really red, Yeah, it was scary. It was scary.
What you said about when he went up to Dina and did the modeling ruse,
Yeah.
like that was like their number one ruse, was the modeling stuff.
See, and my mom educated me on, we had so many serial killers running around in that area of California at that time, that, if you were a smart parent, you better educate your kids, especially your girls, your younger preteen or teen girls.
Right.
And my mom did. You don't go walk by yourself at night. My mom taught me that. It wasn't just about not getting in the car with strangers, but look, in the end, I did. My mom almost died from a heart attack when they found me, Dina and Steve, in Pennsylvania, and they called our parents. See, we were missing. And that's when Larry got busted, and our parents thought that he killed us because we were gone and missing.
Oh, my God.
So... actually, there was another girl that traveled with us. Her name was Andrea Durgan, but she wasn't, I don't think she ever went around Larry. She just happened to want to trail along with us, and she was only all of 12, but she looked like she may have been 15 or 16 body-wise. And her poor mom did drop of a heart attack when police from Pittsburgh called her and said, "We found your daughter." She died of just excitement because they thought we were dead, that he got us.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I can't even begin to tell you. And I mean, ironically, my mom kept me as protected as she could from media and stuff like that. And as the years went, every time Larry came up for an appeal, we all went on with our lives and got married and had children, and we all moved, and they always found us, whatever it was. I think he had 2 or 3 appeals, and they would find us. Next thing you know, there's an LA district attorney again at our doors and having us relive it, because his appeal, his appeal was coming.
Oh, I know. It's my best friend was actually murdered, and it was the trial was like, I felt like I had to relive it 10 times over. Like, it was the worst thing going through the trial. Yeah.
It is. But as an adult now, I have gotten into crime stuff too, and I can get addicted to it on TV and stuff like that. But I never really had the guts to go actually watch the case I was involved in. I never looked, once we got YouTube and stuff like that, I never looked it up. But I'm curious too, because there's a lot I don't know.
This case, and I told you over Messenger earlier, I've interviewed 50 serial killers. I'm a total true crime, just nut. And but I've sat down with so many different killers and spoken to so many different killers. But Bittaker is I've just never come across any killer, any serial killer like him. It was
exactly.
It was. It's just unreal. He's the closest thing to a Hollywood type serial killer. The closest thing I would say is towards a Hannibal Lecter type. He was that smart and that evil.
He was so he was intelligent. It showed.
It does. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't know if you ever found this out. This is weird. This just popped in my head, so I'm going to throw it at you. Did Larry Bittaker ever work at a company called Monasco?
Yeah, that was where he worked, right?
This is so weird because I didn't find this out. Well, we didn't. It wasn't until later that we found out, ironically, Steve worked for that same company years later.
Oh my God, it's so weird.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. They were landing gear. They were in Burbank, California.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so weird because I think one article we read, because Steve tried to after the trial, he couldn't deal with cheap testifying. He stopped, and but anyway, we got married. We stayed away from it for years. We didn't read on it, and then he went to work at this company, Monasco, and only a far few people knew about us being involved in this case. Come to find out, somebody told us that's where he worked, and we looked it up, and it was true.
No, it is true. Yeah, it's all over the police discovery. That was the company.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. I don't know.
And it was crazy. He was making 6 figures in '79, and as a convicted felon too, which is always
I
blew
know.
my
He
mind.
was a super freaking genius. You're absolutely right. To compare him to Hannibal Lecter,
It's the closest, yeah.
the closest real human being that you can compare him to, because that is Larry Bittaker. The way he talks, the way it's amazing.
You know, it's so I started, so it was about, so in June of this year it'll be 2 years of when I started the investigation. So I had been interviewing Bittaker and Norris for about like 5 years, and ironically, which is so kind of weird, I got pregnant, and the boyfriend I was living with, I was like madly in love, and he didn't want the baby, and then he tried to force me into getting an abortion. I wouldn't do it, so he kicked me out, and I literally had about like $2,000 to my name, and he was when he tried to scare me into an abortion, he said, you know, you just wasted your degree, you're never gonna become a forensic psychologist, you'll never write a book, you'll never be able to go to San Quentin and do your interviews anymore, like your career's over. So I took the last of my money and I flew out to San Francisco for 6 weeks, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna interview 3 different serial killers, and I had picked Bittaker. He was my one of the first interviews I went in for, and at the time I was like 7.5 months pregnant, and I was like really showing, and it was just so bizarre too, because like the 3 years prior I had gone in and I had interviewed him before, and I had written to him and I had tried to get him to call me, and he was just so vicious towards me. He didn't like me, he didn't want to talk to me, but it was so weird. When I got pregnant, all of a sudden he started calling my cell phone every single day. Then when I went in and he saw me pregnant, it was the weirdest freaking thing. It was like a 180 turn from like being vicious and just cruel and mean. And it was 5 minutes in the interview, he grabbed the pen and the paper out of my hand, because I was like asking him questions and taking notes, grabs it out of my hand, and he started drawing a map of the mountains of where Cindy and Andrea, the 2 victims that were never found. And I was just like, holy shit. And then he's drawing me a map of where the buried evidence was. And it was just, it was like a movie. Like, as I ran out of the prison afterwards, and I called a criminologist, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, what the hell do I do? And he's like, go to the FBI. The FBI was closed. So then he said, call the district attorney, which was Stephen K. So I got a number for him, and I started calling him. And he like didn't even believe me. He's like, he hasn't spoken in 40 years. He's never given up that information. But finally I started calling Steven and talking to Steven. He realized I wasn't like insane like Bittaker. It actually,
he's wonderful. I love
he is like the nicest person in the world. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He really is. He's so sweet. And he's been helping me like step by step on all of this.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. He's literally been walking me through everything, because I'm like, this is so much to take in. And he's like, I told you, Laura, it's a rabbit hole of a case. And I was like, it really freaking is. And just by chance, Bittaker had mentioned Robin Robeck, who's like the sole survivor. And for some reason, I just went on Facebook and I was like, I'm just going to type her name in, even though it might be like a maiden name. And I found her, and I sent her a message, and I didn't even know what to say. I was like, I don't know if you're the right person, but I'm trying to track down somebody who was a witness in a case from 1979. And it was like 2 hours later, she texted me and she goes, Bittaker and Norris. And I was just like, holy shit, I found her.
Oh my God.
And it was the same reaction you had. Like, it's so funny because every person I track down is the same reaction. It's just like, you know, because it's like a hurricane hitting you out of nowhere, because you know it's been like 40 years. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's being punched in the stomach.
Exactly how she describes it too. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it rushes. Like, I mean, I'm going to be 56, and I laugh because my memory, it's like, sometimes I can't remember yesterday, but I can remember that like it happened yesterday.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's what she said too. And it was funny, she said, she called me and she was on the phone. She was hysterically crying, and I was just like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Like, I'm like bringing up probably the worst memories of every single person in this case. And I was out in California at that time, and she was like 4 hours or something away, but one day we actually both met in San Jose, and we met. It was funny, we met at a Starbucks, and I have about something like 8 hours of recorded interviews with Bittaker on tape. And we just sat in the Starbucks, and she just listened to all the interviews because she wanted to hear everything he was saying. And yeah, she just texted me and she was like, you know, our anniversary of when we met was June 14th, and I was like, that's so funny you remember that. And yeah, she listened. But if we ever meet up, if you wanted to listen to all the interviews, I have them all stored and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, it's tough. There's a part of you that wants to.
Right.
Then there's that other part that, your PTSD shit, that,
Yeah.
because some of us, it didn't affect, I don't think as deep as some, you know what I mean? It affected us all differently.
Yeah.
Depending on how deep you were in it,
Exactly.
and how close you were to his insanity.
Oh,
Shoot.
that reminds me. Michael said something that was surprising. He said he remembers Roy renting a room like 2 doors down in the Scott's Motel at one point, but that's not in any report, and Bittaker or Norris never mentioned that to me either.
I don't recall that. I don't recall that. I only see, Roy would come over to Larry's room. I don't recall Roy ever having a separate room, ever. But who's to say? But I don't recall that at all.
Okay, does the name Colleen or Juba sound familiar to you?
Juba doesn't. Oh, God, do I know a Colleen? I mean...
There was this 13-year-old girl who lived in Long Beach, and Bittaker and Norris were friends with the girl's mother. I guess they would go over there and hang out, but Bittaker was obsessed with this 13-year-old girl. But her name was Colleen, but they had her nickname was Juba.
Yeah, I don't. No, I've never. If she lived like in Long Beach, I wouldn't have known her like on a personal level, But
Right.
I don't recall ever him. There was never. He never brought. There was never a. The only stranger I met, or a friend of his or anybody, was Roy. There was never any other strangers at, other than us group of kids who were there. He never had a friend there other than Roy. He never introduced us to anybody.
What about, what was your, vibe on Roy? Did you ever get, a creepy vibe from...
Sure did. Yeah, I got the creeps from both of them. Larry was a different creep, because of his intelligence. And Larry,
Yeah, I do.
I can't even tell. Roy freaks me out in a racist way.
Yeah.
But they were both, Larry's motel room was covered in stacks of Polaroid pictures of women.
Yes.
I remember I was nosy. He did not like that. He would take $100 bills and line them, take about $1,000 in $100 bills, and Dina would be sitting there and her legs would be crossed, and he would line these $100 bills down Dina's leg. Well, one time he tried that with me, and he turned around. Somebody distracted him, and he had his back to me. And I thought, you fucking bastard, excuse my French. I thought, you fucking bastard, I'm going to steal a $100 bill from you. And I thought I was being slick and that I got that bill before he turned around where he didn't know. And let me tell you, he came and got those $100 bills, and the look he gave me, he freaking knew I did it. He didn't ask for it back though, but he let me know in his stare. Yeah.
He had he had such an intense glare. I remember that so well.
And that smile, it just like Hannibal. I never looked at him that way.
Yeah.
And I watched that movie. I've watched him. It's odd. That's so strange that I never connected Larry with him.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I'm picturing Hannibal Lecter right now, and there's so much of the same demeanor.
Right? It's funny because everybody,
everything. Oof.
Yep. It's the reason, it's funny because everyone, when they hear that I study serial killers and go into the prisons, they're always like, oh, Clarice. And I get asked all the time, they're like, do you have a Hannibal Lecter or somebody who's like, and I always say I'm like Bittaker, hands down. Hands down, he's the closest.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought, when they would whenever his appeal would come up and they'd find us, it was tough. We had to relive it, and then you go through it again for probably nightmare. You go through the nightmares, and it takes probably a good another year or so to calm down. And then, where was I going with that? But I never thought anybody else would contact me because I was a minor at the time of this, and I was under the impression my name would not be used in any of the wouldn't be on paperwork. It would just be I would be a number.
Well, technically you're right. Actually, it's funny. I'm actually not supposed to have these police reports. They're not even open to the general public, and even as a private investigator, we don't even have access to these reports.
Right.
What's so weird, though, is after Bittaker had given me the bodies and everything, I had said to him, and I had called Steven and I had contacted Robin, I straight up told Bittaker, I'm like, I'm going to I want to go through your entire case. I want to reinvestigate it. And I want to write a book eventually about the whole entire thing. And he was like, he didn't like it at first. He's like, I don't want you digging in this case. And he was kind of, but then it was weird. Like, he would say, I don't want you doing it. But then he started sending me packets and packets and files. And then he sent me, so legally, the police discovery is everything that cops found on the case, right? So it's hundreds of pages and it's sealed up with the police. Like, nobody can ever get it. But legally, Bittaker is allowed to have it because he's allowed to have everything on his case. So he said to me, he goes, I'm going to give you the copy of the discovery. And I was like, okay. So that's the only reason I got all these names, was because they're literally in this sealed file, but he had given me the copy of the sealed file. And it's even weirder to me because once I started going through the police discovery, and Robin and I have talked about how weird it is, there's so many mentions of like other victims and murders. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable none of it's out there either. And and I always say to Robin, like, it's just so weird he would give it to me knowing what I was going to find. You know what I mean? It's almost like he... Did they find those bodies? Did they recover them? Well, I'm looking into like everything right now. So this is where I'm at, like, as of right now. I started combing through NamUs and like the Jane Does and stuff and just literally started digging. So there's been 3 sets of skeletal remains, all teenage girls, and they're partial remains, and they're all right off of that road that Bittaker and Norris used. And I think those 3 different teenage girl remains, I think those are 3 more of their victims that just... Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and then... I'm telling you, there's more than you would probably even want to imagine, because the photo, the one stack of Polaroids you would have were women posing in lingerie, right? Mm-hmm. Like against... A lot of times it was like they were against, if I remember right, a white wall. Like they were posing for the camera. Do you remember? It was a lot of times. I mean, and I'm, they look like prostitutes, I'd say. You know what I mean? But that's what they look like to me as a 14, 15-year-old kid. And then he'd have pictures of random, he'd be out in front of Burbank High School, my high school, with binoculars. I always had binoculars in the van, too. Yeah. Do you remember if he ever... Were there any of the Polaroids where it looked like a girl was in a closet, or were there hangers in the background? Yes. There was? I remember that. Okay, I just got really big chills. What do you remember from, like, the hangers or the closet? Do you... What my mind is picturing is, I remember they had a picture and it was a girl and she was kind of scrunched down in a closet. And I would try and look because my curiosity, I knew that man was up to no good and I wanted to snoop. But I had to be careful because you know how he was. Yeah. I had to be very careful. I would try to look at photos that he had laying around and stuff like that. I heard, and I don't even know how true this is, I'm trying to remember even who I heard it from, because really the only person that ever interviewed me and kept me and my family informed was Stephen K. Yeah. He was the only man that was allowed in my house to ask questions and tell me stuff. Somebody told me that when they went into the motel room, he had stacks of Polaroids, and in that one stack was Polaroids that were people he was planning on taking out. Yeah. To kill. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, and your photo was in that. I don't know how, you got to remember, a lot of people were fascinated with this case and were coming out, there were so many speculations out. A lot of people sometimes got off scaring me. Wow. I mean, it's like, people are, how some people get with crime, stuff like that. They don't think about the victim's feelings. They keep probing. And when I mention, and it's very rare that I tell a friend about the situation, when I met Josephine and she said she likes true crime, I said, just look up a case by the name of Bittaker and Roy Norris. And that's all you need to know. I was involved. And so, people understand why I am the way I am, why I am the way I am. It's such a brutal case. I'm trusting of people. It's traumatized me. Wow. My whole life, it's affected me. I can't even imagine. I've been in fear that matter of fact, when you got in touch with me, see, the one thing Josephine did tell me, and I was not aware of, was, so I never kept up with it, if they are dead, if they're alive. Anyway, she did tell me, I read the articles, Tina,
She said, wow, that's all I can say, and I respect you not wanting to talk about it, but she said, Roy Norris is alive, and it's saying he's coming up for parole, like she wanted me to know, and I was like, whoa, what, are you kidding me? What do we do with this man? This is the fear I've lived in, does he get out? What do we do? They're going to come for us. It's reality, or is he going to send somebody from prison to come get us? I mean, we were kids. It was living in absolute nightmare. Freddy Krueger nightmare. I mean, I don't even know. Hannibal Lecter nightmare. There you go.
You should really, I should really put you in contact with, you guys should really talk. I think it'd be cathartic for both of you, because it's uncanny, the same, how stories, like, she's just lived with the same fear, and, nobody to talk to about the Bittaker Norris, especially. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I remember, my mom tried to get me into counseling, and I went a couple times, and I couldn't deal with it, because to me it was easier to not talk about it, and then you don't think about it. I have come to find out through the years, I have been through therapy for the abuse Steve put me through. Steve turned into a violent man after that.
Oh my God.
An absolute monster he turned into. I kid you not. So be careful if you ever find him. Meet him in a good public place. And I hate to say that. I feel so sorry for him, but I was lucky to escape with my life from the abuse Steve did to me.
I'm so sorry.
Well, it's life, but I think probably it would be therapeutic for me, because I've never had anybody to really talk to about it that could even begin to comprehend.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought I was lying that I was involved in something like that, because you don't every day run into people who are involved in such a serious thing.
Right. There's not too many survivors of a serial killer. Like, it's a whole different wave of emotions that you probably go through.
Yeah, definitely.
Does Dina, does she have, like, the same, like, does she have really bad PTSD as well?
Me and Dina ended up moving from California to, I think, back east. And so once she left California, we really kind of lost contact. And it wasn't up until, literally...
Seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device, or play on PC through Facebook Games.
I don't know about you, but every time I go to the grocery store, I'm spending a lot more money on items than I used to. That's why we're excited to share our news. We've partnered with Factor Meal Prep to give you 50% off your grocery bill. Factor is a restaurant-quality meal prep service that we have been using for years.
Cindy would never let me eat a frozen dinner. That's why we love Factor. We can get delicious meals with fresh, natural ingredients delivered every week and have them ready on the table in 2 minutes. How's that for convenience?
If you're anything like me, you might be on a new diet every week. Are you doing keto, low-fat, gluten-free? No problem. You can choose your own menu and mix and match. You want pancakes, chili, spaghetti and meatballs, filet mignon? They have it all, and it's so good.
We've done the math, and Factor is way cheaper than the grocery store or eating out. Plus, every meal is packed with nutrition without sacrificing taste.
By supporting Factor, you help support the show. We can't thank you enough. Sign up and start saving now. Head to factormeals.com/PITC50 and use code PITC50 to get 50% off.
That's code PITC50 at factormeals.com/PITC50 to get 50% off now.
7 months ago, I thought, let me look Dina up on Facebook. And sure enough, I found her. So we've only been reconnected for like 6-7 months.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good, though.
And, we talked, I mentioned that you got a hold of me. And I think actually we did talk a little bit about it when we first connected. We did. I don't recall what actually we said, but we did mention Roy and Larry. And then I let her know you contacted me. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Because we do trip. I'm more paranoid probably than anybody about people, especially connected to this, because how do I not know somebody's not after me?
I know. It's funny because Robin had that same fear because they had tried to send somebody from prison after her. This was during the trial, like back in, 19...
I didn't even know that and not, here it really happened. I mean,
right.
That
Right.
was my fear forever, is that how safe are we? How safe really am I? Because just because he's locked up,
Well,
you know, and we didn't know anything personal about Roy. And okay, one time, okay, see, I only met Roy over at the hotel. Well, oh gosh, it was when Tracy and me. It's amazing how things flip out. I know why we went to the beach. When we went alone with Larry, we went to Torrance or Newport Beach or Torrance, and that must have been Roy's house. We weren't allowed to go in. We had to stay in the van. But I remember it was like Newport Beach or Torrance.
That's pretty much where they used to
house.
hang out.
Yeah, a house there, but we stayed in the van, me and Tracy.
But by the way, I was going to tell you, you know they're both dead, right?
Well, I just looked it up
Yeah.
after you contacted me, because you really did scare me, because I was like, wait a minute, you know, Roy is coming up for parole. I didn't know he died. I didn't know he died. Did he just die last month? Is that correct?
Yeah, and what's even weirder is Bittaker died in December, so they both died within a couple months of each other.
Oh, how creepy.
Isn't that creepy? Like,
That's really creepy.
yeah,
That's really creepy. But I did know, I think how I found out about Larry was it was on some news thing. I think that's how I found out about Larry.
Yeah.
But then, see, when Josephine looked up the case after I told her about it, this was months ago, so Roy was still alive, and they had his next parole date on the article, so that's what she told me about. So really, I just I pushed it in the back of my head, you know, like, you're kidding me, he's on parole, but at the same time, I haven't been checking up on it, and then I didn't know anything. When you contacted me, I thought it was because you needed to interview me because he's coming up for parole, and I didn't know what to do. I was ready to pack my bags.
You know what's weird is only Leah's Lamb's brother showed up for the parole hearing last year, and I said to Robin, I go, did you get a call from the parole board to come down and speak? And she said no. I was just surprised, like, they never, contacted you or her or any of the witnesses to go to the parole hearing.
Yeah, none of us were ever contacted. The only contact I ever had again was every time that asshole had a damn
appeal.
I was angry, you know. I mean, we all went on with our lives, and they show up again, and I used to be like, at this time I had a daughter, a beautiful little girl, and and what I went through affected me as a mom, because I became so protected over her.
No, I bet.
Not wanting her to have that happen to her, because when you're involved in something like this, you now know what evil walks on this planet, and it does exist.
It's true.
It still exists. There's still people out there like this walking the earth.
It's horrible.
It is horrible, yeah.
It is.
When I did look him up and found out he just died, I was getting a little bit more comfortable to reach out to you, because I thought, they're dead. They can't get me. That's crazy.
Yeah.
40 years, over 40 years, and the death of them makes me feel it's over. They can't get me.
Yeah. They're gone. Finally.
And you get pissed because they got to live and die of natural causes, and none of those girls got to.
Stephen K said the same exact thing. I can tell you, Bittaker did have, it was a painful death for him. Very.
Oh, I hope it was.
It was.
Good. I hope he suffered.
Yeah, I know it was really bad. I was interviewing him. I went out. It was like the 3 weeks right before he died. He could barely, he was in pain, like crazy pain.
Yeah, that's what you at least wish for,
They get some of the karma back towards him.
I understand people, innocent people have been executed. I get it. And, that's why California stopped doing it. I get it. But we knew 100%. We had all the evidence that he was 100% guilty. Why did he get to live?
Yeah.
You have that, I don't know, you've dealt with this, so you know how victims are, what they go through. It's a very strange emotional roller coaster.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, like Robin says, she has good days, she has bad days. Like, sometimes the PTSD kicks in, and she told me a crazy story. She said when she never watched Criminal Minds, but the first time she ever turned it on, it happened to be the episode about them. Like,
oh, God.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. Out of every episode, That's the one you turn on.
Yeah, I can't even look. I mean, I haven't seen a picture of him. I think it was the last picture was whatever they had on the news when he died. And then when you contacted me, you have that picture, you know, that comes up on Messenger. So I clicked on that, and that was hard to see.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, remember when I told you how, you know, he knew better than to hurt one of us because we would point the finger?
Yeah.
You know, if one of us disappeared. I'm curious, like you said, you didn't want to tell me in a text message what, you know, that you guys were talked about that at one point.
Yeah, well, he would ask him, like, you have all these teenage girls at your place, and he'd say, yeah, all the time. And I was like, well, why didn't you kill any of them? Why didn't you take one of them? And he said pretty much exactly what you were saying. He was like, because I had a connection. So if one of them died, they could have all ran to the police and said that I did it. Like, yeah, he knew that you guys knew, I think.
I knew he knew. I made sure, and weird as it was, I wanted him to make sure he knew that too.
Yeah.
You know, because me and Steve were like really the only ones that were on it, to be honest. You know, I mean, there was, you know, some of us were popping LSD. It was the time, you know, drinking a lot, smoking a lot of marijuana, that kind of a thing. And so really it was just go to his place, get as fucked up as you can for free, and then, you know, either he kicked you out or you left, you know, one or the other.
Yeah.
I just smoked back then. The only thing I ever did was smoke a little weed. I was on it watching every time I was in that room.
I bet. You know what's really chilling is when you told me that you and Steve spent that night in the van.
Oh, yeah.
What's weird is I tracked down 2 of the guys who were cellmates with Bittaker when he was in county, and they've been telling me crazy stories of what Bittaker was telling them, and one of them said the same thing to me, that he would talk about how he rigged the van so you couldn't open it.
Yeah, because whenever we were, like when me and Tracy went with them, or whenever we got a ride from him, you know, like I said, actually I shouldn't, that's a lie if I say that, because going with Tracy was the only time I was never with Steve. You know, I think at that point we hadn't known, I know that's the case because I wouldn't have went alone.
Yeah.
At that point I didn't know, I wasn't include on that it was dangerous, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and of course I felt comfortable because Tracy was with me. My mom came out and looked at him and met, you know, I forget what name we used. I lied to my mom. I got in a fucking van with a serial killer.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I mean, it's crazy.
It is.
Yeah, I know he knew, but because, that's why I was always scared, because he didn't like me.
Yeah.
He did not like me. I had a boyfriend. I had Steve.
Yeah.
You know, and he was out to freak me and him out, and he did, man, because he was honest. I know he was honest. He's smart. That man is smart.
He does have like an incredible head.
I IQ too.
Yeah.
What was IQ off the freaking chart, I was told?
It's 138, which is right next to genius. Like almost Mensa smart. Yeah. Oh, back to the van, I was going to say, what's really weird is when you guys spent the night and he told you it's soundproof, you can't get out, what's even creepier to me is if you guys slept in that van in July or August, right?
Yeah.
Here's what's even crazier is you saw the ice pick with the brown stains on it, right?
Yeah.
So obviously that had to have been blood. What's weird though is he killed Andrea, the second victim. That was like I think it was like July 12th. It was like really the beginning of July he had killed her. But when he had killed her, he had stuck the ice pick in her and it got stuck in a bone, and he just left it in there and just threw her body here. And then he killed Jackie. That was it was like September 3rd he killed Jackie and Leah. But he stuck the ice pick into her skull and left it there and tossed her. So I'm thinking, if you and Steve saw that ice pick with blood on it, like whose blood was it? Who else did he use that ice pick on?
I don't know. I mean, we got, you know, there once or twice, you know, I wouldn't go home at night, you know, I want to stay the night with my boyfriend, you know, and there was the 24-hour laundromat right next door to the hotel, right next door to the liquor store, and me and Steve had stayed at the, you know, 24-hour laundromat to stay the night together. And that particular night, you know, we were leaving Larry's to go to the laundromat, and that's when Larry said, well, you guys don't have to go sleep at the laundromat, y'all can sleep in the van. I looked at Steve like, fuck no. And of course Steve wasn't listening to me, and you know, he was thinking of no, we're being a van, nobody bother us, because we risked getting arrested being underage teenagers in a 24-hour laundromat at, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever, because the Burbank cops were really honest kids, honest teenagers back then. But anyway, Steve was like, come on, it's going to be okay. And I remember him taking me by the hand, us going out of the motel room, Larry following us, or us following him, and then him proceeding to tell Steve. He mainly always rarely did he talk directly he did talk directly to me, but when I'm sure I couldn't hide on my face fear.
Yeah.
As much you think you are, you're gonna have some, and Larry is that type of person. He could notice a millisecond of a change in place. I'm telling you. And I felt like he could hear my heartbeat.
If you had any second of hesitation, he probably instantly picked up on it.
Yeah, like he could hear your heartbeat. And it was almost like he thrived towards the end I was picking up, like he is thriving off my fear. He wants to drive me crazy. He knows, because I told you, we called the Burbank police and told them, and, we were two scared teenagers. We were like, you need to go check on this guy. And I don't know if I had the room number correct. I think it was room 111.
11, yeah.
It was 11?
And
okay.
You know what's even weirder? His cell at San Quentin was 111. And what's even weirder is it's my birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Isn't
weird.
It how, numerology, how people...
That's what everyone's like, there's so much like synchronicity with you in this case. He had my birthday was the cell number. We have the same initials, which is even weird. Like it's just weird little coincidences.
Yeah, it is kind of weird how there's those little connections.
Yeah.
Strange.
I've always thought like this was
like that too.
Yeah, no, I've always believed like I was meant to dig into this case. Like those were like the little signs like this is what you're meant to do.
Well, God bless you, man.
It's been crazy.
Yeah.
It's been wild. I mean, and it's crazy too because I feel like this might just be the beginning, of those 3 bodies, those 3 partial remains. And then, I'll tell you about the other ones I've found too. It's really crazy. So when he was in the county jail, he was talking to a guy named Donald, and the guy was drawing a picture of a girl, and Bittaker said to him, he goes, that looks like a girl named Cherry I killed. I cut off her feet. And he drew this as a picture, and now the picture is in the police discovery, and I looked at it, and that's why I asked you about was there ever a closet, because in the picture there's like hangers behind her, like she was in a closet. And I've actually tried to track him down. He won't talk to me. I'm still trying because I want to know why he drew her in a closet. I wonder if Bittaker had said something like he had her somewhere in a closet. And what's even weirder is Bittaker's fantasy was to have like an underground compound or a trailer to keep victims. And I really, really question if it was just a fantasy or if he really did have some place that he was using, like a trailer or an underground thing for these girls.
Gosh, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I said, we never seen. I'm trying to think if there was a closet, to be honest with, most motels don't have a closet where it's like a closet type that you have in a home.
Bittaker was so smart. He would never, ever bring a victim to that motel.
I know he wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, Roy was the sloppy one.
Yeah.
Roy was the sloppy one. Wasn't it Roy that ended up getting them busted?
Roy got them busted, yeah. It was all because Roy.
We ran away, man. I was running way clear across the United States. I was, because we felt that our time was limited.
It was, there was 3 girls that that came forward at least. There was 3 girls that Norris raped on the side. It was still raping and trolling and hunting on the side. And Bittaker was getting mad because he was like, you're going to get us caught by raping these girls. But I've tracked down another girl. I can put you in contact with her if you want to speak to her. She doesn't have any PTSD, thank God.
Wow.
She was hitchhiking to her sister's graduation, and Norris picked her up, and she said he drove to the school. He said he was going to the same graduation ceremony, and he parked behind the school, like where, the trucks come to deliver, the food for lunch.
Right.
And she said he just looked at her and he said, I'm gonna rape you. And she said, fuck you, and just started like clawing at him. And but she was like a petite little blonde, and he got on top of her and started choking her. And she said she literally thought she was gonna pass out. Like she felt herself going. That's how much he was choking her. And
Fucking the life out of her.
literally, she was about to like go unconscious, and just by a miracle, somebody walked behind the school and scared him, and he sat up and let go of her, and she was able to jump through like a half a window, like crawl through it and jump out. But she left her purse in the car, and in her purse was a keychain with her keys with her address, and it said like, please return. So Norris called Bittaker panicking, saying she got away, she saw my face, and Bittaker said we have to go kill her, and they went to the address. And this is where the story doesn't really make sense, because I talked to Kristen, I was like, was your house for sale? And she's like, I don't think so. I think they may have went to like a wrong house, but the house they went to was like for sale and like abandoned, so they just figured she wasn't a threat and gave up of looking for her. Yeah.
God was watching over her.
Yeah, literally. I mean, twice.
Literally. Yeah, twice. It wasn't her time.
Yeah.
It wasn't her time, you know. I mean, God, I can't even say that. That's not the right thing to say for those girls, because it wasn't their time.
Well, it wasn't either. It's funny because Robin never showed fear when they took her, and I said to Robin, I go, I think that is a big part of why you were saved, is because Bittaker was such well, they both were totally extreme sadists. Like, they got off on the fear. They wanted to see that fear. Like, exactly. You talked about it. And I think because you didn't give it to them is the reason they just got bored. Like, they wanted that fear. You didn't give it to them. And I think literally that probably helped save her life.
I'm sure it is, because that's how, we were around Bittaker more so than Roy, but you had to be really stupid not to pick up that something was off.
Yeah.
Something was off, man.
Yeah.
Whoa. But a lot of people, Dina, she'd smile and get whatever, pot she could, be honest, and, and stuff like that, not thinking twice that, could this possibly be a dangerous person?
Right.
I used to tell her, why, I can't believe you're so naive.
Yeah. Don't
smile at him like that, because, he would, stare at her, and, I don't know, there was something there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but there definitely was something there with, with Dina.
Yeah, he probably did.
Dina didn't see it that way, she was like, I'll just take this idiot for what I could get,
Right.
Why, how some girls are, let me get free weed, I'll just smile, wink, whatever.
He probably fantasized about taking her as a victim.
Yeah, I'm sure she was a victim because of them approaching her at the park. Why else would they approach her at the park?
Yeah.
Once everybody got out of school or whatever, come I'd say 3:30 in the afternoon, we all started heading to the park.
Right.
A big group of us, and here Dina comes up, smiling, and oh hey, I'm going to be a model, and we're like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? And, just telling me, and I'm like, Dina, did your mom not teach you? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Number one, you don't talk to a strange man, let alone two strange men alone in a park.
Yeah.
But a lot of girls were, it's sad because it's not being naive. You're just loving life and living life and not thinking people can be that way.
Right. And they had...
opposite of that. I was raised where I had to be aware of my surroundings.
Yeah, it's a good thing your mom taught you. Honestly, they had girls filling out these release forms with their address and they had stacks of those forms, and they knew these girls' addresses and personal information all about them.
It is scary. It's crazy. But I know a lot more people died at Larry's hands, and probably both. I don't think, this was my thing, I don't think Roy was more into the murdering part of it. I could be wrong. Roy was there, if I remember right. Roy was there when they played that tape. Steve had been alone a couple times with Roy and Larry at the hotel, and Steve would come and tell me what the hell was going, what happened, why he was there. God, my mind's going a million miles an hour. I forgot where I was going with that. I'm sorry. The point being that a lot of people were just, I don't know, naive to it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just glad they're gone off this freaking planet.
It's crazy how two guys too, how they came together. But I'm with you. See, Bittaker had told me, he went up in those mountains as a teenager and started fantasizing about bringing victims there. And I think he started in his early 20s. I think that just happened to be like a dumping ground for him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think, they say that him and Roy met in prison. They planned this whole thing when they got out, and they did it. I don't think that's the first time Larry's killed.
I don't either. And I think he was trying to groom other guys, too.
Just looking into, like I said, I studied him. You couldn't pull nothing by him. You couldn't put nothing past him, and total Hannibal Lecter, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, I think he's been killing for, I think he's been killing for a while. In and out of prison, I think he was going up in those mountains and doing a lot, like on his own.
Yeah. Because like I said, I only heard little bits and pieces is what I've never gone on the internet and looked it all up because I didn't want to. But I've heard, just different stories through the years that, oh God, I think my mind's blacking out. I'm sorry.
No, it's probably the trauma of like rehashing everything again.
Yeah, it's a lot. It really is.
Yeah.
Can you think of any other questions you might want to
No,
ask?
we can talk. We'll definitely talk again. Just whenever
Yeah.
it's probably a lot.
Yeah.
We've already covered so much too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there was still a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because back in that time too, but, we didn't have the technology, and the cops didn't do reports very well, and I'm sure there is. It would be amazing. You'll probably never find out the whole thing with him. None of us will.
I don't think so. I mean, I'll probably find out a little bit more, but I don't.
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we know there's more victims, and that's what kills me. I wish you could find them and bring some peace,
Did Bittaker or Norris ever talk about Knott's Berry Farm ever, or?
Knott's Berry Farm. I don't recall. But then when you say Knott's Berry Farm, all of a sudden Tracy pops into my head. I don't know why.
Well, just
I
think
don't know.
about it. Just wait. I always say to everyone, like, just think about it, because
Yeah.
I'll say something to Kristen or Robin or one of the cellmates, they'll come back to me and be like, oh, I just remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had floods of memories that just since you contacted me.
Yeah,
That
it's a
stuff,
lot.
Yeah, your brain starts kind of opening it back up, little
Yeah.
piece by piece. Yeah.
You know what's weird too is I actually started having the same nightmares that Stephen K had. Isn't that like the most bizarre thing? And I told Stephen, I'm like, I'm starting to have the same nightmares where you hear the girls screaming in the van and you'd be running and running to get to them, and then you'd get there, it'd be too late.
Right.
It's just like, and it was just so weird, the same exact nightmares.
Yeah, one night, this was after, so we got arrested on October 31st in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and me and Steve got Dina and Andrea's moms. They put them on airplanes and flew them back immediately. Well, Andrea had to. Her mom had a heart attack. Our parents, mine and Steve's mom really never gave a shit about him, to be honest. They I guess, wanted to teach us a lesson, so they were going to send money for a Greyhound bus. So we ended up having to stay with a probation officer in Pittsburgh for a few days, and then I remember the bus ride was forever. So I don't really remember when we actually got back, and then that's when all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
Because they had gotten busted. Why we were what date was it that they were arrested? Do you know?
It was
do you remember?
11/21. Yeah, 11/21.
Okay, we may have been in Pittsburgh even longer. I don't know. I can't think of, the time frame part is I'll never remember exactly. But we get back, and then they got busted.
Yeah, it was probably like pandemonium too for you guys, because everybody was probably.
Oh, my mom was. I mean, they were at our door. The media, you know how it is.
Yeah.
I don't even know how the media found out where I lived, but they do.
Wow.
The Burbank newspaper was at the door. My mom, I didn't go to school. I didn't do nothing. My mom kept me locked up.
Yeah.
Literally locked up. And Stephen K. did ask her if I would testify. If I wouldn't have to, testify actually sitting in the courtroom across from Larry.
Yeah.
I'm a minor or whatever. Now, Steve was a minor, but I don't know how, but Steve agreed to testifying, and they let him. Maybe his mom gave the permission. She probably would if she didn't care.
Yeah.
My mom locked me up.
Yeah. It's probably better you didn't testify.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. Because Steve came back one day from court, and, of course, he's shaken up and everything. And apparently Larry had an outburst in court, threatening to kill Steve. You asshole, you fucking asshole, I'm going to get you. And
wow.
They had to remove Larry from the courtroom, and that was the end of the court for that day. Steve was shaken up. I think that's the last time Steve went and testified. think he told Stephen K. I can't do it no more.
Wow.
Because we're afraid he. And then, I was going to tell you this story. So this was after they had been arrested. I can't tell you. It could have been a month that they had been arrested. It was still fresh. And me and Steve were back down at the park, McCambridge Park. You know, you haven't been there in California, have you, and retraced any of the...
No, I'm
been to
hoping
where the
to
hotel
get
was
out
or
there.
anything?
No, but I'm hoping to get back out there and do all the retracing of
You know
everything.
what? I would love to go with you. I could take you wherever.
Yeah, you know what's it's
It would
crazy.
almost be therapeutic to walk.
Yeah, and
anyway.
Robin, you know what's crazy? Robin wants to come and go do that too. And
Really?
Andrea's sister, I'm really close with Andrea, the second victim's sister. And right now, it's such a mess with everything going on with the pandemic and everything.
I know.
It's the freaking a production company came to me and said, we want to do like a documentary on this and we want to go look for the girls and do a search. And I was like, yes, I want to get a second search done for Cindy and Andrea, because once I got the locations from Bidiger, it took us 15 months. We had to get, the maps were just crazy, because you have to get the elevation point, which direction the body was, put into. Like, it was extensive work, but we finally pinpointed right before he died where Cindy and Andrea, the pinpoints of where they are. And so then I gave him to Stephen K. and I said, were these searched? And he's not positive about Cindy, but he said Andrea's was never searched. So we have like a really, really good argument to do a second search and get it done. So the production team had said to me, he goes, a network will fund it. Like, a network will pay for all of that, because it's probably about hundreds of thousands of dollars with all the equipment and people we need. And I've told him, I was like, well, I have to be part of the search. Like, I'm so invested in this case. And then Robin said, I want to be part of the search. Kristen wants to be part of the search. Andrea's sisters, of course, and everybody. And but we've all talked about that, like going back to LA and going to like the Scott's Motel and going up into the San Gabriels and like all of us going together.
Yeah, I would jump on ship with that too.
Yeah. It would be awesome.
I could help in any way that...
And hopefully it's cathartic for all of you guys together. I always say to Robin, I go, one day this is all going to be just a bad memory, and all of us are going to be having barbecues together. Just think of it that way. Like, one day we'll look back with happy memories instead of like this horrible, horrible trauma. I'm hoping.
Right.
Yeah.
Because out of bad comes good too.
Yeah. Light's coming out of darkness, hopefully.
Yeah.
Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and check out extra content from all of our podcasts. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content.